Hi everyone, today we're going to go over the trig functions that we've learned so far. Remember the trig functions are sine, cosine, and tangent, and our phrase SOHCAHTOA tells us how to find the missing side when we're given an angle and one side. So we're going to go over questions 1, 3, and 5, one sine, one cosine, one tangent example. Your homework will be to complete the evens 2, 4, and 6. So for question 1, the angle is 21. That would also be called my theta. And the angle across from it, the opposite angle, is x. And the angle, the side labeled 40, that's going to be the hypotenuse. Remember, we always look at that right angle. The right angle is that little box, and the side opposite the box is automatically the hypotenuse. The side opposite the right angle. So notice I was given the opposite side and the hypotenuse side. So therefore I can use the sine function because those use the opposite and hypotenuse. So remember our formula would be sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. And in this case, we're talking about the sine of the angle 21. And then it's going to equal, well, the opposite side was labeled x. I don't know what x is. That's what I'm going to solve for. The hypotenuse was 40. So I'm going to put 40 for h. Remember, to make it a proportion, I need to have two fractions. So sine 21, I'm just going to put it over 1. Now to solve for x, I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to do this side first. 1 times x is just x. So x equals sine 21 times 40. So in your calculator, you would type in sine, parentheses 21, close the parentheses, times 40. X equals, when you plug into your calculator sine 21 times 40, you will get 14.3. I'm just going to round ours to the nearest tenth. For question 3, I tell you here that you have to use the cosine function, but if we label these, we'll see that we are using the adjacent hypotenuse side. So the angle is 51. Again, that's my theta. The side that's opposite the right angle, the 90-degree angle, is automatically hypotenuse, which leaves the 12. The 12 is next to the angle, so that would become the adjacent. Adjacent's always the side next to it. So really, the 12 and the x could both be adjacent, but the x is hypotenuse because that's what's opposite the right angle. Okay, and then our function, our proportion, cosine the angle, or cosine theta, equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So filling this in, cosine, the angle is 51, equals the adjacent, the A, I labeled as 12, and the hypotenuse side I labeled as x. Remember, to make this a proportion, I'm going to put the cosine 51 over 1, and then I'm going to cross multiply. So I'd be left with cosine 51 times x equals 12. Because 1 times 12 is just 12. Now to get that x by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by cosine 51. That would cross out on the left. So I want you to put into your calculators 12 divided by cosine 51. And when you do that, you'll get x equals 19.1. question 5, we're going to use the tangent function. So to start by labeling, the angle 14 is the angle we're using. That's my theta. The x is going to be the angle opposite it, the one that's directly across from it. Opposite, I'm going to label that as O. And the side labeled 70, well, that's next to the angle, so that's adjacent. The other side here would be the hypotenuse, but notice the hypotenuse wasn't labeled, so we're not using that. Therefore, we're using the tan function because we need the opposite side, the adjacent side. Okay, so remember our formula is that the tangent of the angle equals opposite over adjacent. So the tangent of theta, or the angle here is 14. So tan 14 equals, the opposite here was x, and that's what I'm solving for. Adjacent side I labeled as 70. To make this a proportion, I'm going to put tan 14 over 1. Now I just want to cross multiply to solve for x. And first I'm going to do 1 times x, just because I know 1 times x is x. And then tan 14 will multiply by 70. Tan, and remember in your calculator the 14 really is in parentheses, times 70. X is already by itself, so all you need to do is simplify tan 14 times 70 in your calculator, and when you do that, you'll get 17.5. And that's your answer for question 5. So your homework today is going to be to complete questions 2, 4, and 6, the even numbers,